And that looks much better and complements the detailed engine bay. Super happy with that. What's up, Speedy's Garage gang, and welcome back to the Speedy's Garage YouTube channel. If you've been following along, you know I've been doing a lot of work on Project 4Runner here. I got the valve covers cleaned up, got the valve cover gaskets replaced, the half moons, the cam plugs, and if I touched a part on the truck, I cleaned it as I was doing that work. But now I'm going to get into getting a really good detail of the engine bay and underneath around the oil pan. Now that I got those valve cover gaskets replaced, I want to know if I have any other oil leaks. And with the way the valve covers leak, they tend to run down the back of the motor, down to the bottom of the bell housing, and then it drips, and it can make you think you've got a rear main seal leak. I'm not seeing any more drips from this truck, but it is kind of wet back there. So I want to clean all of that up to know exactly what's going on and clean up all the oil that was leaking from before. So I'm going to show you the stuff I'm going to use to do it and how I'm going to get this done. Hello, beautiful. So this is sort of going to be my plan of attack. 12mm socket to get the battery brace off. I am going to remove the battery, not because I'm necessarily concerned about the electronics or anything, but I want the battery out of the way so that I can clean around it and give me better access to the coolant overflow and all of that. I'll need a 10mm for the battery posts connections. I'm planning on, there's some rubber panels underneath the wheel wells or inside the wheel wells that are held on with some push pins. I'm going to pop those loose and just let those covers lay down to give me better access around the oil pan. Definitely going to need some brushes, and I'll link in the description to some of this stuff. These are going to be real handy for getting around all the plugs and wiring and all of that. A bigger brush just to make it quicker. And then the products I'm going to be using are Simple Green. I got the lavender just because I like the way it smells. I'm going to use it in my pump sprayer. This is going to be the heavy lifter right here. This Gunk Original Engine Degreaser. They have a lighter version of this and a heavier version of this. I went with kind of in the middle because mine's dirty, but it's not like crazy. And then this is a foaming engine degreaser, and this one's pretty light duty, but I got this just for any touch-ups that I might need to do at the end. And then when all of that's done and it's dry and everything else, I picked up this. You want to be careful with what you use in the engine bay. You don't want to use anything that collects or attracts dusts or anything that's greasy. And this is a non-silicone based, non-greasy engine detailer is what I'm going to call it. It sort of makes your plastics black again and the hoses nice and shiny, or satin really is what it's supposed to do. And it's kind of a spray and walk away product, and I'm going to try this out. I haven't used it before. I've used products like it before, but this is the one I'm going to use today, and I'll let you know what I think of it at the end. And finally, some microfiber towels. Probably not your best ones. We're talking about the engine bay after all, and these are probably going to be shot pretty smoked when we're done. And then a couple of plastic bags. There's some areas in there you don't want to just flood with water. One of them is the alternator, so I'm going to cover the alternator up with this plastic bag. And then when I'm doing the underside of the hood, I'm going to use this to kind of lay over the engine so that water isn't just dumping down from the hood and getting all over it. The top part's already pretty clean anyway, and I want to be able to control how much water goes in that area. So I'm going to put a black plastic bag over that just to make things nice and quick and easy. I'm going to start with getting this battery out of the way. And see, with the battery out of the way, it gives a little more access, and I can clean this nasty thing. I mean, look at that, gross. Clean all underneath here. These plastic trays usually protect metal, but a lot of times you'll find older cars with the battery trays rusted out because it's corrosive. So I'm going to be cleaning that up really good in that area. You want to start from the top down, so I'm going to start cleaning the under hood area. I am going to cover this with a plastic bag like I said, and you'll notice I parked the truck. It's later in the afternoon, and I parked so that the hood is providing shade to the engine bay. You don't want to put these cleaners and stuff on here and do them in the sun where it's likely to dry. You can start getting some white pitting or something weird on your aluminum pieces, and I'm going to be really careful not to cause any problems when I'm cleaning all this up. And I'm going to start with just a dry brush down just to get any loose junk out of here. Be surprised how much will come off just loose. I'm going to use the smaller one in the engine bay, start brushing stuff. particularly around the wiring connectors and all. And I used to detail this engine once a year, and you know, get busy, other things, have other cars, so I've sort of neglected cleaning this one for a while. So it is definitely due. And I've done a lot of this already when I had the valve covers off. Pay attention to your air box, where it's got a lot of crevices and stuff. What's this? Ooh, yeah, in here. Brush all that out. You'll see I got my HID ballast and stuff. I want to be careful around that wiring particularly. Don't want to cause myself any problems. So I'm going to be real careful around that. Here are the kind of the plastic flaps I told you about. And they're held in place with push pins. And mine are old and pretty brittle. But I found that if I came in from the engine bay side, it's like a little Christmas tree thing you can pinch and push. And I was able to get them out without breaking them. Here's what one looks like. And they're pushed in this way. You can kind of see, whoops. You can kind of see how they have little tabs on them. And I just reached in and pinched them and pushed them back. If you break them, not that big a deal. You can get replacements at the auto parts store. And I'll leave a link in the description to some of those too, because I probably will end up needing some. But I did not pull the ones out of the frame, because you will probably break those. I just did enough to where, and there was a plastic shield over here, same thing. Just popped it back so I have better access to get the hose water kind of saturated down in this area. And I also pulled both parts of the skid plate, and they are really gross. So I'm probably going to end up using the pressure washer on those, but I'm going to do them at the end. All right, got my pump sprayer pumped up with the cleaner. I'm just going to saturate everything. Let it soak about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to scrub it with scrub brush. And you'll notice I do have the top of the engine covered up with a plastic bag, as well as the alternator. And any overspray on paint, you want to dab up with a microfiber, a wet microfiber. Probably won't hurt anything, but better safe than sorry. A little soap on the brush, degreaser, and just scrub it. Watch your eyes. You don't want the flick to get in your eyes, so keep an eye on that. Then use some low pressure warm water to spray it off. And you can let this drip dry, but I'm going to use a cordless blower to speed up the process. There it is. 5 minutes, all it took. And if you have any spots that you want to clean up, you can go around with a microfiber and just dab them. We're down to just a drip there. I'm going to leave the engine covered and start sort of going after some of these electrical plugs with this small brush. I want to control the water, remember, around all those plugs. If it was a brand new car, I probably wouldn't be as concerned, but these are 21-year-old plugs. They are weather resistant or water resistant, not waterproof. So I just want to be conscious of that. I'm going to try to clean up all the electrical boxes and everything really well with this small brush. And I used the Simple Green at 100% since this hood liner was pretty dirty, but I've mixed it down to 50-50 for inside the engine bay since it's not too terribly bad. I'm going to mist just a little bit of water on the components I'm going to start cleaning, and then hit them with the Simple Green, get them with this brush. Not too much, just enough. We'll put a little bit on the brush. Now I'm just gonna paint them with soap. This should make this pretty easy. And after you agitate everything with the brush, you can dip it in a little bit of warm water and then use it to sort of wash off the soap. Again, I'm trying to be cautious with not getting too much water in here because it's a 22-year-old, 21-year-old vehicle. And then just use your microfiber towel to wipe everything down. As you can see, it comes out super clean. I'm trying to get it back to as close to like new as I can. Now, again, it's old, but doesn't mean we can't clean it up, make it look good. Well, here's where we ended up on the top side of the motor, and look at that huge improvement. I mean, it really looks almost brand new. And I didn't have to use a ton of water. Again, if this had been a newer car, I probably would have just sprayed the whole engine bay down with the simple green and then let it soak and just hit it with a light mist of water and called it good. Probably hit it with a brush, scrub it a little bit. But because this one's older, I didn't want to take any chances of water getting into any of these electrical connections and giving me trouble. So I was a little more cautious and conservative with the water. But I haven't even done the engine dressing yet, and that's how good it looks. I'm super happy with that. It only took about an hour, so not even hard. It's actually super easy, nice day, sort of enjoyable to be outside. So again, we're working from the top down. So now I'm ready to start kind of hitting the lower half of the engine. And this is the driver's side, which if you have one of these, you know, the oil filter where it's mounted, it makes a huge mess every time you change the oil. So I'm gonna go after it with this engine degreaser and just follow the instructions on the can. If you use this stuff, it says to spray it on a cold engine. Obviously, this whole project you wanna do with the engine cold. It says spray it on a cold engine and let it sit about 10 to 15 minutes and then rinse it off with water. So I'm gonna start hitting these areas that I know are just nasty. Then I'm gonna climb under the truck and get around the rear main seal and behind the bell housing and all that, because I really want to know what I'm dealing with there. And this is why I didn't park in my driveway. And the final step is going to be our engine detailer. Even though this says engine protector, it's actually a detailer, and I've already started wiping it on. You have two options here. You can spray it on everything and it'll be super shiny, or you can spray it on a microfiber towel and wipe it on everything. It'll kind of give a satin finish. I personally prefer the satin, so that's what I'm going to do. You want to kind of hit the spots, like the big things that you're going to see, like this timing belt cover is one good example. Smells good. Smells like citrusy. And there is the finished product. I've let the truck sit for about 45 minutes to an hour. The last thing is to just go for a 15-minute drive just to dry up any last little bit of water that might be in crevices. That looks awesome. I am super happy with that. All right, here we go. Everything's looking good. Gotta reset my clock. And I always like to go for a test ride, like I said. It get the engine up to temperature, get it hot, and it'll burn off or sling off all the remaining water that might be stuck in any crevices, plus the wind blowing across everything will kind of get rid of that last little bit of water. While I had the skid plates off, I decided to go ahead and restore them. I did sand them down, clean them really, really good, and paint them with some semi-gloss black paint. I did notice, and I'll show you this, on this bigger one that's up front, mine was wanting to collect and start to get just a little bit of rust in the corners here and here. So I hit those with some rust reformer, which is basically a spray that converts rust back to normal metal, and then put a little bit of RTV. I think what's happening is water's getting underneath this little steel stamped lip right here, and it sets. So I put some RTV around that on each side just to seal it off. I won't have any more rust problems. But there they are, all cleaned up and painted good as new. And yes, I did clean up the bolts. OCD, blessing and a curse. And with those skid plates off the truck, it gave me an opportunity to continue to monitor for any additional oil leaks outside of the valve covers. Now remember, detailing the engine bay, I told you I noticed a little bit of kind of wetness on the rear main seal area, and I was curious if I actually had a rear main seal leak in addition to the valve covers, which I knew were already leaking. Well, it's been a week. You don't see a single drip. I'm going to try to show you under the truck. So this is going to be pretty hard for y'all to see probably on camera, but there is the bottom of the bell housing. You can see it is bone dry. And I did check up around the rear main seal area, and it is bone dry as well. So that tells me I do not have any additional oil leaks, which is excellent news. And the reason I wanted to show you guys that is to highlight the importance of detail cleaning the engine bay and all underneath, especially the lower half, after you swap out your valve cover gaskets. I was pretty sure I had a rear main seal leak, to be honest, and it was just residual from where the oil had run down from the valve covers and gotten all, I guess it sort of has the way gravity works and the way the shape of the back of the engine and the bell housing and everything is, it sort of works its way back in there and it saturates that area right where the bell housing and the transmission mount up, and that's exactly where the rear main seal would leak. And it's really hard to tell if you don't clean it up. So cleaning up the engine bay and detailing it was definitely time well spent. After the engine detail, I thought the hood liner or hood insulation actually looked pretty good, but then it dried out and I realized it's got some staining and stuff. It's been on here a long time, and you can't, at least I couldn't find these anymore, and even if I did see where they used to be for sale, it was like 200 bucks. So I'm gonna try to remove it without breaking any of the plastic clips and use some fabric dye on it to make it hopefully good as new. I'll probably test a spot on the back before I go crazy with the spray, but hopefully I can bring that back to life, make it look a little better. Mine was held in with a bunch of these push pins, but they're very old and brittle. So about half of them broke, and I even used my best pry tool. Kind of goes underneath and you lift up like that. I tried going fast, I tried going slow, but unfortunately a bunch of them broke. Just is what it is, we'll have to get some replacements. But once you have all those push pins out of the way, it's just held in with a couple of small retainers right here that are built into the hood. We can just slide it out of that. This is the product I'm going to try for this. Haven't ever used it before. It does come in a flat, which you can tell by the lid, as well as gloss. So make sure you pick the right one for your application. For this, obviously I'm going to be using flat. And I'm just going to do two light coats. Normally I'd be doing this outside, but it's super windy today, so that is no bueno. Looks like it's going to do a good job. So there's what it looks like all done. 2 light coats took care of it, and it looks 100 times better. So this stuff gets a thumbs up for me. And I picked up all new factory-like push pins. I'll leave a link in the description where you can get them, but they're just like factory. And a lot less expensive. And that looks much, much better and complements the detailed engine bay. Super happy with that. Well, that's a wrap on detailing the engine bay. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Be sure to check us out on Instagram. It's at Speedys_garage, as well as the website www.speedysgarage.net. Stay tuned, because next up we're going to go through and detail the chassis and frame, and I hope to see you out there.